Hello, everyone, and welcome to another virtual edition of Words from Behind the Desk presented by Arwani Law Firm. My name is Vyky Rifai.
And I'm Rania Arwani.
If this is your first time joining us, we appreciate you so much stopping by. We ask that you like us, you share us with somebody that could use some of this valuable information. If you're joining us again, we appreciate so much your love and support. We ask that you give us a like, share us, and please make sure you engage with us since this is a live and we have two incredible professionals, experts here with us today. Please join us and join in on the conversation. We will take all questions and comments, and we appreciate you guys engaging with us. Rania, we have incredible guest today. If you can go ahead and let everybody know who is joining us today.
So today we have Brenda London. So Brenda London is a family law attorney in Orlando, Florida. She's been practicing family law for over 32 years, and she also teaches collaborative law and is an adjunct professor at the Berry School of Law. She's also serves as the director of the Berry Collaborative Family Law Clinic, and she is also a collaborative trainer, and she trained me.
Wow, so freaking cool.
And we have Dr. Teresa Parnell. She is a licensed psychologist. She's a Florida Supreme Court certified mediator, accredited collaborative law professional, certified addiction professional, and a collaborative trainer. And she also helped train me.
So cool. Dr. Parnell, Brenda, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here with you both.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on Words from Behind the Desk. You know, I know a little bit about what collaborative law is because I've had the luxury of talking to experts such as yourself, but I like to get the foundational questions, and I just want to know from the experts, what is the difference between collaborative law and traditional litigation?
Teresa, can I just start with that one?
I think you should, since you're the lawyer.
It's like night and day, because it's so interesting when you look back at how we did things in the day and went to litigation. That was all we could do. We'd start at litigation, we'd be there, and that was the choice that people had. Then we got mediation, and that helped bring things a little bit closer to working on things together and being out of that litigation process. Yet it was still an important component to litigation, and although that's done well, it didn't quite fit all the bills. Then we come along back in 1993 and we come up with this new process called collaborative law that started out in Minnesota by this lovely attorney out there who had had enough of his family law cases and what it was doing to families. And he said, there's got to be another process. So they started what's called collaborative law. And his name was Stu Webb. He's darling. He's still around, still very involved in the collaborative process and movement. And he said, we need to take this outside the court system. We need to work with families together. We need to put together a team that helps them. And we need to do our very best work at keeping people outside the court system so that they can have resolution that they develop themselves together, even through the hard stuff. And we can do that by putting together a team for them. So, and putting together that team, that's that collaborative part, right? Because I get to work with wonderful people like Dr. Teresa Parnell and other collaboratively trained attorneys like Rania Arwani and financial experts to help us work through all the issues that this family has for us to deal with. And we do that outside the court system. The only time the court sees it is to give that nice rubber stamp saying, job well done,
Good
people.
job.
Final judgment, you're divorced and you did it all on your own. And so that's just been remarkable results for people and for families to really be able to move on in a better way. And oftentimes, and most of the times I would say, they leave us so much better than when they came. And I can't say that about litigation because litigation was adversarial and you had to pick out what was the worst thing about the other person, no matter what. And that really wasn't getting good results for families. And the damage has continued to go on and on from generation after generation because of that system.
Well,
Very true.
I'm glad we got that started. It seems like we should have started that a few hundred years ago, but neither here nor there. It's here now.
Right.
Right. It's right. It is here. And I think it's really here to stay. I don't see it going away. We have a state law now about it. We have rules and regulations surrounding it. We have, certifications now that say who's doing the work, who's trained to do the work, who's, really excelling in this area. And so we're really trying to help families understand it, get to the results that they want to get. It's more efficient. We deal with a lot of stuff that you could never deal with effectively in the regular litigation system. You just couldn't. So I really think it's our highest and best work as lawyers, working with families. I mean, I can't imagine doing it any other way. I feel like if I did it the other way, it would be going backwards.
Yes, totally. Does that work?
Right. So every collaborative case has at least 2 collaborative attorneys on it, right? We start there. Everybody has their own attorney, hopefully collaboratively trained. That's a really good place to start. And then those 2 attorneys bring in other people to the team, such as the neutral mental health facilitator. That they're called many different things. And Teresa, you can talk to all of the names we've now given that role. Yes. But it's such an important role that really has, I think, made our collaborative work, especially in Central Florida, just some of the best work out there, because we absolutely use that mental health neutral on our teams, as well as a financial neutral. Same thing. And talk about the work of those 2 neutrals together on the team is kind of amazing, as well as with all the professionals. But it really has been wonderful to see how that has grown and how those neutrals have grown in understanding their roles in Central Florida. We have some of the absolute best neutrals in the world. I am convinced of it. I really am.
Cool.
One of the ways to think about it is every divorce has legal aspects, financial aspects, and emotional aspects. And when you combine all of those areas by bringing in experts in each of those areas to help guide you through making the decisions you need to make, and then you add in that the family is the experts on their family in a way that the professionals will never be.
True.
Right. And so then you combine all of that. And even if you have someone in the family who's a financial expert, when it comes to their own family situation, sometimes they can't bring that expertise to bear, or the spouse is not receptive to the other spouse's expertise. So when you bring your financial expert and your legal expert and your health expert and your experts from your own family all to sit at the table together to work through the different problems that pop up, it really is an ideal situation that, yes, would have been great if it came hundreds of years ago, because it makes such perfect sense.
That is so cool that there are, it speaks for itself kind of in the name, right? Collaborative litigation, collaborative team. And I know that there's so many roles that are involved, which is really smart on whoever's the one who kind of created this concept, because they knew all of the different components that would be necessary to have a successful collaborative litigation, and I know that there's a child specialist and a divorce coach even involved. What does that role for them look like? How are they supportive to the collaborative team?
So one of the things that can be a little bit confusing that Brenda kind of touched on is the various names that are used to describe the mental health professional that's involved on the team. And some of it depends on what part of the United States or what part of the world you're in terms of the exact approach. So technically, you really only need 2 really great collaboratively trained lawyers to do collaborative law. And in certain situations, those 2 lawyers working very differently than they ever did in litigation, but really bringing all of their skills to bear can help that family through the process. But other families really do need the additional assistance of an interdisciplinary team, and that's sort of how it's done in Florida. And so in Florida, primarily, we use one mental health professional that's called a facilitator, or a neutral mental health professional, or a collaborative professional, or a collaborative neutral. There's lots of different names. I think the new rules refer primarily to the word neutral or neutrals. But other parts of the world or other parts of the country might bring in an additional person called a child specialist who has special training in child development that will see the children, meet with the children, talk to the parents, and then give feedback to the team about sort of the view of the children and how they're doing and what the children need and how to best protect the children in the collaborative process. Sometimes in Florida, that part is also done by the neutral mental health professional, but some families need more than that, and the neutral can't play all of those parts and pieces, and so a child specialist will be brought in to focus on the child or children's needs. Divorce coaches, or what is commonly referred to as a two-coach model, is just a different way of approaching a collaborative divorce. And in the coach system, you usually have two mental health professionals or two coaches. They might or might not have a mental health background. Most of them do. And each spouse or each partner in the collaborative process has his or her, or her and her, his and his own coach that guides them through the process. Sometimes the problem with the two-coach model is then you don't have a neutral facilitator. And so sometimes then the financial will take on the role of being that facilitator. In other places, they then bring another neutral in. So you can see it can become a crowded room. But this is one of the beautiful things about collaborative process. Litigation pretty much happens one way. You have certain forms to fill out. You have certain deadlines to meet. You have a certain way that it's usually approached. In collaborative, as long as we stick with some of the core principles of transparency and respect and a commitment to non-litigation, then we can design the process, the particulars of the process for a particular family, and use these parts and pieces we're talking about as necessary.
So cool. So cool. Rania, I'm sorry, I took your question.
You're good.
Well, I also did want to know, go ahead, Rania.
No, go ahead.
Because Rania, I know that you are a trained professional, and you've brought on other trained professionals that deal within this collaborative team legislation. Can any attorney or mental health specialist become a team member? Or how does that process kind of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that anybody who, first of all, I think all lawyers should be trained in it. I absolutely do. Whether they even think that they're going to do this type of work, I think they need to be trained in it because they need to be able to explain it to their clients that that's an option, whether or not they choose to do it. But I also think if we could get as many family therapists on board with doing, as many licensed therapists, as many psychologists doing, so that they know too, even if they ultimately don't want to be a neutral, because that takes a very special person to do that. I mean, Teresa, you have had to make a full change in how your whole business operates because of the work that you do now, mostly in collaborative. I mean, it's in huge. Right. So it may not be for everybody, but should everybody be trained? I absolutely would say yes, because they need to know what it's about, because a lot of people don't, and they have misconceptions about what collaborative is about. And yet they're the ones that are sending their clients, or their patients to lawyers to get divorced. So they need to know what those options really are as they're helping them. And same with financial. We deal with a lot of CPA neutrals and a lot of evaluations, people who are in valuations as neutrals. And so, but then we deal with a whole bunch of financial people as allied professionals. And that's a whole other category of people that can come into the process. And it's not even just financial. It could be a realtor. It could be an appraiser, a mortgage person. There's so many other allied professionals as well that could come into this process for a certain family. If every family is different, every family has different needs that we have to meet the needs of that family. So the fact that we can be creative and collaborative, that's kind of the best of both worlds for the families we represent.
So cool.
I want to just add that like any other specialty area within a discipline, there's a certain level usually of training or licensure that's required to be able to participate. And then we say to ourselves, what do we need to know? What do we need to have experience with to really bring excellence to the process? So as Brenda said, everybody is welcome in these professions that we're talking about. But if someone is listening that is really interested in being a collaborative professional, then what they want to say is, okay, so I meet sort of the basic requirements to participate, but now what do I need to know to do a really great job in this somewhat different way of practicing? And there's lots of information available for the types of classes that you might take and the types of experiences that might help you be a really great collaborative professional. And so if someone's listening and wants to get involved, they can contact Brenda or I, and we can guide them to the places where they can take a look at what's recommended in order to bring excellence to the work.
Very cool.
Right. And that is important because, you could go to a training. It's like a basic 2-day training. Well, it used to be until it was on, Zoom, but it's basically 2 full days, right? And that's only the beginning, that's the only beginning of your journey. But so that's why you have to look inside to your commitment. If it's just to learn about it and understand it so you can tell your patients about it or your clients about it, but you have no interest in doing it, that's one thing. But if you're interested in doing that, it takes a lot of effort and time and changing of your practice and continued education as you go along. Just like anything else, you got to get those 10,000 hours in at least to know what you're doing, right?
Yes. And Brenda, you did an amazing job helping me figure out how to switch from being a litigant, a trial attorney, to this gray area of, no, I'm going to work to help the family reach a place that they could not otherwise reach if we went the traditional way. And it's not telling, the clients, hey, you can fight for this or fight for that. No, it's more, what's best for you guys? What will work and make your, the other, your husband, your wife, the father, the mother, less angry or less hostile towards you, and how will this affect your kids and what have you. And Dr. Parnell, you did an amazing job, helping the parties reach a place where they can move forward with less, with less hatred or less resentment to each other. So Dr. Parnell, talk to us about that. How do you help the parties get there? How does that, in the collaborative process, how does that work?
Well, for one thing, I want to say it's not, you're asking me, but it is absolutely a team process.
Yes.
And it's very interesting as it unfolds and relationships develop. And sometimes the relationships aren't exactly as you would expect them to be. But with a professional team, you have a lot of different personalities, a lot of different way of communicating. And so it could be that the financial professional builds a much better rapport and communication with one of the clients around what that client is experiencing emotionally than I do. And other times I may really speak the financial language the way that another client does at the table. And so some of it is coming together as a team to really think about the uniqueness of this family and the uniqueness of these 2 individuals. What do they value? What is important to them? And if they've really gone different ways in what they value and what is important to them, what are the threads that we can find that still tie them together enough that we can focus on some of those core constructs that are important to them. The other way that I think is important to think about how the process moves forward is there is a certain path that we take. I don't know, Rania, if you remember from your training, it's what's often referred to as the roadmap to resolution. Yes. But there are some very simple parts that make this process work and actually that make it so much better than litigation, even when a good mediation is set down in it. In this process, we're going to gather the information that the clients need to make the decisions that they need to make. And for some people, maybe 2 people in the same family, one person needs a real depth of information and the other does fine with a more shallow level of information. We're going to meet both of those needs. So before we're making any decisions, we've gathered all the information that they need, and then we embed that information in what they told us at the beginning, that they value, what's important to them. To be able to be at our children's wedding someday, even if right now I really can't stand to look across the table at him or her. I want to be able to be at that wedding,
Yes.
A number of years from now, to be able to have some sense of financial security, or to be able to walk my children to school, or whatever the large or big things are that are important to someone. We take all that information, we sort of embed it in what's important to the family, and we begin to build options. And this is where I've been so delighted to work with lawyers in this latter part of my career, to see how creative you all can be, Rania. It's amazing. And I think sometimes lawyers aren't thinking in that creative mode. And this process helps them really use what they know and along with their creativity, to put some options out on the table that at the beginning of a process, nobody would have ever dreamt of. And now here we are 3/4 through, and we have these really creative ideas on the table, because it's built in the information we gathered and it's connected to what's important to these people. And then sometimes the work gets tough, because then the options are on the table and two people want the exact same option. And sometimes we're using our good old-fashioned, mediation type skills, therapeutic type skills, lawyering type skills to help move them through what that block is. So that's how I see sort of the team working together and moving from beginning to end.
Amazing.
It's so cool because you guys have like a bird's eye view of everything rather than like a narrow thought process that comes with individual litigation. So to have somebody kind of have a bird's eye view of everything and talk over everything and be able to make a informed decision rather than a quick, irrational decision. I think that's so, why haven't we done this sooner? It's just all I want to know. I want this. And I know if I ever went through a litigation process, I would want this, for somebody who's interested in this type of litigation, how do they talk to their partner and showcase this type of collaborative litigation?
So, Vyky, I know that Brenda is kind of like biting her tongue because I don't think she likes the fact that we're calling it litigation.
I apologize.
Oh my God,
it was okay. I was going to kindly reframe that question. But yes. So I think there's always an art to talking to our spouses or anybody about new things, right? And so especially when you are all in a mess at the moment and not sure what's happening. So, I think the main thing to do is to say, hey, listen, there's this process out there that we don't have to go to court. We don't have to do all that stuff we see on TV, all of that stuff that plays out. That doesn't have to be us. Yeah. And we can put ourselves and our children first. And to do that, this collaborative process really fits that bill. So let's take a look at that. And so you could then ask them to take a look on our website, to look at the Collaborative Family Law website here in Central Florida, which is wonderful and very informational. You could, go search for attorneys who are doing collaborative law. And then I often, if somebody confronts me for a collaborative case and I talk to them about it, they say, okay, tell me what to do about my spouse. I'm like, well, why don't I just write a letter to your spouse and telling them about the process and the options?
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
How we'd like to do it that way. So imagine getting a letter, yes, from an attorney, but not a threatening one. One that's an informational one saying, here are the good people that are doing, the practicing collaborative law in this area. We'd like to put your children first and, get through this in the best manner possible. I mean, I think that that's pretty cool, right? And then the other thing too, is that we really want to get this out to everybody, not just people who, make millions of dollars, because that's not what this process is about. This process is about getting it to everybody, including those families who couldn't possibly even afford an attorney. And so through the Berry Collaborative Clinic here in Orlando, we've been able to take on 2 families each semester and give them a full team of not only law students, but lawyers who have been newly trained, collaborative attorneys. Dr. Parnell, Dr. Parnell is our mental health neutral. Imagine being on a team with her, and that's kind of amazing. And then a financial that comes in and does it as well. We've been so fortunate to have people help us with that. So you get about 18 people in the end. It's hilarious. All for free, though, to give everybody, even families who could not possibly afford it, that opportunity to have collaborative practice.
Wow.
And we've been so successful in it. We just got another one done last week, and we're starting another one this week. And so we're looking for new families again for the spring semester coming up. So keep that in mind. But
so cool.
And that's a free process, if they qualify. And we really have been so fortunate to be able to help families across the board. And then we have another one, another project that Teresa spearheaded, and that's the One Case Project.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So, as Brenda said, we really want to work to provide, because the process is so fantastic, we want to make sure that it's available to clients across the income spectrum. And you may have already had a show on this, but the whole concept of access to justice for folks who have financial issues is such an important issue. And we don't want to participate in that divide any more than we have to of folks who can afford good legal services and those who can't. And so, as Brenda said, the pro bono clinic is available to families who make roughly about $40,000 or a bit more than that potentially per year for a family. And Brenda screens those cases. And so she's serious when she says, if you know of a family, please make contact with her so that we can provide services to them next semester. And then for folks who are at or about $100,000 of income and no more than at or about $100,000 of assets, we provide a 3-session collaborative process. It costs the family approximately $7,000 plus another roughly $500 in court fees that we can't control. But they get an entire team of professionals from the Central Florida area, 2 lawyers, a mental health and financial, who significantly reduce their fees in order to provide this service. And then they also get a note taker who is pro bono, is providing all of his or her hours for free. And it's a full collaborative process. We have been successful in completing all of those. We work very quickly in 3 of these, what we call sessions or meetings. And then for the rest of, if you don't fit into either of those categories, there's lots of ways that collaborative professionals in the Central Florida area can creatively look about how to provide collaborative to your family where your income level is. Whether or not collaborative is more expensive than litigation, from my perspective, been doing this for over 30 years, I know what the numbers look like as a non-lawyer because I participated in those litigation cases as a guardian ad litem or a parenting plan evaluator or a parenting coordinator. I talked to parents. I know what they spent on their litigation cases. And I know that collaborative can be less expensive. Is it always less expensive? Maybe not always less expensive, but I'm confident from working with the collaborative families that I have that clients end up feeling that they got a much better value. Why? They had some control over the timeline. They made decisions for themselves. They understand, because of what we described earlier with the information that's gathered and the work done to get them to really think about what's important to them, they understand why the decisions were made in the process that they made, that they signed off on. And they're less likely then to need to come back and change something because they're comfortable with where they ended up. So the value for the dollar, even if you end up costing the same in a particular family, the value is always higher in this kind of successful collaborative process.
So I'm thinking, and this is a question for both, Dr. Parnell and Brenda. You guys have been doing this for a while right now. From your experience, watching families go through the, traditional process and the collaborative process. I mean, we know that this is 100 times better going through the collaborative, but what damage did you see that people went through when they went through the traditional, and how different is that from the collaborative?
Well, I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
So one area of damage in particular has to do with the emotional pain that children go through and the potentially long-standing psychological damage that occurs. Sometimes even when parents are really well-meaning, they're just in pain. They're not even intending to create that level of distress in their children. But when you have a litigation process where you go to your lawyers and really what's talked about is what can we get for you, mom? What can we get for you, dad? And how do we prove to the court why you should have it and the other person shouldn't? And we fracture from the very beginning the co-parenting relationship because we're fighting for percentage of time with our children as a fight. Who's going to get the biggest piece of the pie? Then those folks don't get focused on building a co-parenting relationship, maybe one that they never had, or maybe improving the one that they did have as a married couple. In collaborative, they come together immediately in the midst of all that pain, but immediately with the attitude of, how do we try to get both of you what you want? How do we try to maximize the time that each of you spend with your children? How do we start getting you looking across the table, even if you didn't get along really well looking backwards as co-parents? How do we get you thinking about that now? So the time spent as a former parenting coordinator, the 1 to 2 years before they get to me and all this damage has been done, we're starting in a matter of weeks or months, preventing that damage and building for the future. That's the big one for me.
It's amazing.
And, you know, for me, it's very similar in so many respects. And it comes from my place as a guardian ad litem, because I have worked with children and families and seeing the damage that gets done in litigation. And I have one case, literally it's 10 years. So it's trials, and then it's all this fighting in between, and now it's another trial, and then it keeps going on. These children are going to be graduated from high school soon now, and they have been in litigation with their parents fighting the entire time. You know, and when you talk to them, you understand the most important thing is that they love their parents, and they want this conflict to stop because it's harming them and their relationships with everybody they know. And so from that perspective, when I look at the value that we get, and it goes back to that value, and I look at what litigation, you know, can ultimately do, it's so much harmful to families, and it just keeps going and going. It doesn't stop. After generations, it continues often, and it's really, really hurtful to our communities as well. And, you know, not to you know, say it doesn't help lawyers themselves. I mean, it's a hard practice being in litigation and doing that all the time, knowing that ultimately you may be destroying a family, not helping them.
That's hard. Yeah, that's
hard. And the work you do, it has to resonate with you. It has to be important enough to you to do your best work. And I just really feel that we do our best work in collaborative teams. It makes all the difference.
I am on board with you, Brenda, and definitely with Dr. Parnell. This is, I mean, it's an amazing process, and everyone who's going through a modification, a divorce, or whatever, everyone has to definitely.
Right, and we do paternity actions in collaborative. I'm doing a prenuptial right now in collaborative. It's fantastic. They're having such great conversations. It's like premarital counseling almost, but it was things that they needed to be able to talk about in a way that was non-threatening, that was helpful and educational. It's been fantastic.
So this isn't just for divorce cases only then.
Right. Correct. Yes. Across the board, family issues. There's no doubt. Ultimately people should be doing this with probate cases as well. I'm not a probate attorney, but boy, would there be a need for that there as well.
Oh my God. If it actually went probate, it's going to be like that's a big issue for everyone.
Yes.
There's actually work being done in that area, as well as in the area of, from a civil perspective, like closely held businesses, family businesses that are that are going a different path now, maybe sort of breaking up. So it hasn't taken hold either of those areas, if we're in probate or in small businesses, so much here in Central Florida, but it is a growing area. And I think Brenda and I both believe that collaborative will have a strong presence in those other areas in the future.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So, Vyky, you want to talk about, you're going to put the information that we need so people can reach Brenda.
Oh, yes. Brenda, Dr. Parnell, we appreciate so much you guys coming on and bringing an expert's point of view on everything collaborative. Brenda, did you hear that? I stopped at
did.
on collaborative law. Guys, thank you so much for talking about the Barry University Collaborative Family Law Clinic and Dr. Parnell about the One Case Collaborative Project. Guys, if you are looking for more information, you can email Brenda at blondon@barry.edu. And for more information about the One Case Collaborative Project, email office@drparnell, PARNELL.net. We'll put that information on at the end of this conversation. Guys, we appreciate so much your time, your expertise. Thank you for educating us. And thank you for your time on this beautiful Monday afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you so much, Dr. Parnell.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Wow, that was an incredible conversation.
It was, wasn't it?
Wow, I feel like I just don't understand how we haven't collaborated more. And it makes so much sense.
We definitely
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
People don't know about it. And the more people learn and understand what collaborative law is, the more people will get engaged in it, the more people will choose it, because at the end of the day, it is the better option.
It absolutely is. And I can see how it makes sense for us as individuals, but then also for the team that we're working with also, because you guys end up fighting for us and joining our fight and take on our stress and everything that comes along with it. So I just love collaborative law and I want everybody to know about it. Guys, again, remember, if you're looking for more information at the end of this video, we will put the information on. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, if you haven't already, like us, share us, engage with us. We still read through the comments post this video. Remember, you can always email us any questions or comments at manager@arwanilawfirm.com. And we look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Until next time, we will see you on next week's Words from Behind the Desk.
Bye, guys.